The AI war is worse than you think. Here's why.
Both nations understood something profound. Whoever dominates AI will dominate
right into this explainer and unpack the absolutely high-stakes geopolitical forces that are literally shaping the digital fabric of our tomorrow. You know, we hear about artificial intelligence all the time, right? Usually it's just about a cool new chatbot or an image generator. But honestly, right beneath the surface of all that consumer tech, there is a massive invisible war being fought right now. It's a quiet, entirely ruthless competition between superpowers, and it's absolutely going to dictate the terms of our future. Seriously, I want you to project yourself just a few years forward, into a future where artificial intelligence dictates basically everything.
Try to imagine a world in 2030 where AI is managing our power grids, directing global financial markets, and even serving as the backbone for national defense systems. Now, ask yourself a really crucial question. In that highly automated world, who is actually running the world? Because we know that the answer
to just their everyday digital intro.
Think about that. A share that has literally tripled since 2019. Meanwhile, America's share of global data generation is steadily declining, projected to sit around just 17.5%.
So you have this incredibly fascinating dynamic. The US completely dominates the engine, but China is rapidly cornering the market on the fuel. Section 3, the 2025 showdown, clash of superpowers. Fast forward to 2025, and this escalation has absolutely reached a fever pitch. We're seeing two distinct, completely rival visions play out. The United States launched America's AI Action Plan, which is explicitly focused on countering Chinese ambitions and maintaining its technological supremacy. In response, China rolled out its Global AI Governance Action Plan, and they take a different rhetorical approach, really emphasizing multilateralism and inclusivity on the global stage. So it's two entirely different strategies, but they are driven by the exact same ultimate goal. Make no mistake, this is not just dry, boring policy. This is a real-time geopolitical shift that is fundamentally altering the balance of global power as we speak. Two superpowers, two totally different visions, and one massive prize, the future of intelligence itself. Honestly, the way these two nations navigate this whole hardware and data divide is absolutely going to determine the architecture of that 2030 world we imagined at the start of this explainer.
So, the question is no longer whether there will be an AI war. That war is already here. The only questions left are, how exactly will it be fought? And ultimately, who is going to win? Keep your curiosity sharp, pay close attention to where the data is flowing, and always think critically about the technology that's shaping your...
In October 2022, Washington crossed a Rubicon. The United States suddenly restricted exports of high-end microchips to China on national security grounds.
Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're untangling a massive geopolitical chess match, a move that caused ripples literally no one saw coming. We're talking about the fierce, high-stakes global race for artificial intelligence, and specifically, how one huge policy decision changed the board entirely. So let's just dive right in. Control the hardware, control the war. It's an intense quote, right? But it perfectly captures America's initial playbook for keeping its technological supremacy. The logic was actually super straightforward. Artificial intelligence needs a ridiculous amount of computing power. Ergo, if you can control the physical microchips that generate that power, you basically control who wins the AI race. It was a strategy 100% built on physical dominance. Section 1. The Silicon Blockade. To really get the impact of this aggressive strategy, we kind of need to look at how fast things escalated. Back in October 2022, Washington basically crossed the Rubicon. Citing national security, the US suddenly blocked exports of high-end microchips to China. And boom, within months, 36 Chinese companies were blacklisted. But they didn't stop there. October 2023 rolls around, and the curbs widened to hit even lower-performing semiconductors. Then, by March 2024, the rules get tightened again to stop any supply chain loopholes. We're talking brand new authorizations needed for exports, re-exports, the whole shebang. It was a wildly rapid and sweeping escalation. And the disparity that followed? Absolutely staggering. By pretty much any metric you look at, the American computational advantage was overwhelming. The US controlled over 70% of the world's high-end GPUs, and they were sitting on over 5,000 data centers, compared to China's total of less than 500. For Chinese tech firms on the ground, the new reality was frankly brutal. Following the bans, they suddenly found themselves with access to just 1/8 of the high-end chips that were readily available to American companies. Just 1/8. Imagine trying to run a sprint, but your competitor's got an engine 8 times the size of yours. That was the raw silicon reality they woke up to. Which naturally brings us to a massive question. Honestly, probably the most important question of this entire explainer. Did the restrictions actually work? The whole intended goal was to stall or cripple the adversary's AI ambitions through hardware starvation. But, well, when you apply that kind of extreme pressure to a highly motivated industry, the outcome isn't always what you'd expect. Section 2. The efficiency pivot. See, instead of crippling those ambitions, the restrictions actually acted like a massive catalyst for a totally different kind of innovation. Denied access to the most powerful hardware, Chinese researchers didn't just throw their hands up and quit. No, they took all of that energy and funneled it straight into software optimization and algorithmic efficiency. They essentially set out to prove that brilliant, out-of-the-box engineering could partially compensate for sheer hardware inferiority. It was a huge pivot from relying on physical hardware to relying entirely on software and ingenuity. And the results of that pivot, they honestly stunned the world. Cut to January 2025. A Chinese startup called DeepSeek releases an AI chatbot. And it didn't just quietly enter the market. It skyrocketed straight to the top of Apple's download charts. More importantly, it was going toe-to-toe with its top American competitors on a global scale. This outcome was an absolute masterclass in efficiency. DeepSeek v3 achieved near equal AI performance to systems like GPT-4o, but here's the kicker. It did it using just 1/10 the computational resources. 1/10. It fundamentally shattered the idea that AI is solely about brute force silicon power. It proved it's equally about how cleverly you squeeze every drop of potential out of the resources you actually have. Section 3. The Real War, AI Talent. This incredible software leap brings us to the core focus of today's explainer. Because this battle for microchips inadvertently sparked something way more profound and enduring. Get this, by 2025, China was producing exactly half of the world's top 20% of AI researchers. Let that sink in for a second. 50% of the most elite, highly sought-after AI minds on the entire planet are now originating from one single country. It is a staggering human capital advantage that's been quietly building up in the background while everyone was distracted by the hardware wars. And this shift happened with blistering speed. Back in 2019, that figure was sitting at 29%. But as those hardware bans escalated over the next few years, forcing that intense pivot towards software and engineering efficiency, the talent pool just exploded, spiking all the way to 50% by 2025. That talent pool literally expanded in lockstep with the restrictions. But wait, there is a second half to this talent equation. Historically, a huge chunk of that international brain power would migrate to the United States to work and study. But the data shows that since 2017, the number of AI scholars migrating to the US has plummeted by a massive 89%. Which brings us to a pretty profound realization. The flow of human capital is actually reversing. Those highly skilled researchers we just talked about, increasingly, they're deciding to just stay home. Because the most critical resource in the tech sector isn't actually a microchip, it's the human brain. And the geographic center of gravity for that resource is shifting, heavily. Section 4. Beyond the hardware race. What started out as a highly targeted policy maneuver ended up unleashing some incredibly complex global dynamics. As the data tells us, it became, quote, a contest of creativity, resilience, and national will. The chip war stopped being a simple hardware race a long time ago. The restrictions inadvertently forged this super lean, hyper-efficient software industry and fostered an environment where half of the world's elite AI talent is now cultivated and, crucially, retained domestically. It became a true test of adaptability. So I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to chew on. If a massive hardware blockade ultimately sparked an unprecedented talent revolution and historic breakthroughs in software efficiency, what unintended consequences is the next great tech race going to bring? In a world this interconnected, every single action causes a reaction. And, as we've seen today, sometimes those reactions completely rewrite the rules of the game. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you next time.
The efficiency revolution.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. If you're a focused learner trying to wrap your head around the mechanics of the world's most critical tech race, well, you are exactly in the right place. Today, we're diving into America versus China's AI paths. We've got some fascinating new data that proves this whole US-China AI war has entered an entirely new, totally unexpected phase. We're talking about a shift defined not just by who's hoarding the most hardware, but by efficiency, accessibility, and global influence. So let's jump right in and break down the hard numbers and the strategies driving this paradigm shift. Okay, let's start with some baseline data from the Global Artificial Intelligence Innovation Index report for 2026. Right now, the United States is leading the pack with a score of 78.44 points, and China is sitting in second place at 60.49 points. Now, if we just take that raw score in isolation, it paints a pretty straightforward picture, right? Clear American leadership. But as with any massive global competition, a single snapshot in time doesn't really tell the whole story. To see what's actually happening beneath the surface, we've got to look at the trend lines. And that brings us to a really crucial point, momentum. Think about this number for a second, 17.95. The gap between the two nations has rapidly shrunk down to just 17.95 points heading into 2025. To put that into perspective, back in 2023, the difference was 22.02 points. So we're seeing some serious acceleration here. The distance between the frontrunner and the challenger is closing, and it's closing fast. But you know what's really fascinating about all this? It's not just that the gap is narrowing, it's exactly how they're pulling it off. Which leads us to Section 1, the efficiency revolution. Doing more with less. So let's ask the million-dollar question. How exactly is this gap closing? You'd probably assume China is simply trying to build bigger computers, right? Matching America chip for chip, data center for data center. But the data reveals a pretty huge twist. They aren't doing that at all. They're actually playing a fundamentally different game. And this stat brilliantly illustrates the efficiency revolution we were just talking about. When we measure compute efficiency, which is essentially the ratio of the intelligence you get out versus the raw training power you put in, China's leading models actually outperform their American counterparts by an average of 30.4%. I mean, that is a massive leap in engineering efficiency. They're literally extracting significantly more intelligence per unit of computational energy. Because of that 30.4% advantage, the immediate financial disruption in the market is staggering. Chinese models now cost roughly 1/4 the price of comparable American products per token. Just think about the economic leverage there. That kind of massive cost advantage completely alters the calculus for any business looking to integrate AI into their day-to-day operations. Let's move to Section 2, Open versus closed models. Tearing down moats. What we're seeing now are two highly distinct strategies emerging. On one side, American businesses have traditionally leaned into a closed model. This means they restrict access to their highly advanced systems, gating them behind subscriptions and licensing fees to maximize revenue and protect their intellectual property. China, on the other hand, has leaned hard into openness. Their whole strategy is built around being good enough, but offering that capability at an absolute fraction of the cost. And the real-world impact of this? It's honestly stunning. DeepSeek and other Chinese open-source models are now being widely used right inside Silicon Valley itself. American companies are making a very practical, cold calculation here. They're realizing that a good enough model for pennies on the dollar is often way more valuable to their bottom line than a perfect model at an astronomical price. As the sources point out, these open-source tools are effectively tearing down the massive billion-dollar moats that giants like OpenAI and Anthropic have spent years building up. But it's not all one-sided. Let's look at Section 3, the hardware reality, the persisting gap. Because despite all that incredible efficiency on the Chinese side, America still holds a major, undeniable advantage. And we don't even have to guess at the size of this gap. We have this super honest acknowledgement straight from the founder of DeepSeek, one of China's absolute top AI developers. He stated that China remains 12 to 18 months behind America's leading AI companies. Now, in the AI world, where major breakthroughs seem to happen practically overnight, 12 to 18 months, that is a lifetime. It really grounds this whole conversation in reality. And the reason that 12 to 18-month gap exists comes down to one thing: the sheer, unbelievable scale of the models. Right now, American models have started exploring staggering heights, up to 800 billion active parameters. By contrast, Chinese models are currently operating in the tens of billions. So we're talking about a massive, massive difference in brute computational scale and capacity. To really drive this hardware deficit home, let's consider what it would actually take for China to match that American scale today. To train a model of equivalent size to America's absolute largest, it would require roughly 50,000 NVIDIA GB300 chips. And here's the kicker: because of current trade dynamics, that is hardware China simply cannot access. So that's the ceiling on their efficiency revolution. You can be incredibly mind-bogglingly efficient, but eventually brute force hardware scale actually matters. Which brings us to Section 4, Shaping Global Rules, the new battleground. As these AI models grow more and more powerful, the US and China aren't just building tech anymore. They are actively exporting their rival models of funding, technology, and regulation to the rest of the world. Washington's approach is to tie advanced AI access to trusted partnerships, heavily prioritizing security and using export controls. Beijing, meanwhile, is promoting broad access and working through multilateral institutions. So this whole competition has transformed. It's no longer just about who builds the coolest AI, but who gets to shape the actual rules that will govern it globally. Let's summarize these coherent national strategies. The source material makes a great point here. The winner of this race won't necessarily be the one with the most chips or the biggest models. It's going to be whoever most effectively combines all their resources. On the American side, the core advantages are raw compute power and elite talent. On the Chinese side, their advantages are vast data, energy infrastructure, and that incredible engineering efficiency we talked about. The ultimate victor will be whoever best orchestrates these totally distinct elements into one unified, functioning national machine. The philosophical reality we have to take away from all this data is simply this: neither side can claim victory yet. They are both racing toward a future that, honestly, neither fully understands. This isn't some simple story of good versus evil. It's the story of two incredible giants. Each one is absolutely convinced that its specific path is the right one, and both are racing toward a horizon that just keeps receding as the technology gets better and better. And in that uncertainty lies the greatest danger, for sure, but also the greatest opportunity. Which leaves us with one final thought. The outcome of all this isn't going to be determined by a single breakthrough. It'll be determined by who adapts and innovates best. But it also begs a much deeper question for us to ponder as we watch this AI war unfold. Is intelligence, whether it's artificial or human, ultimately about dominance, or is it about discovery? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this data gives you a clearer, more structured view of the massive AI paradigm shift happening right in front of us. Keep learning and keep questioning.